So this is a very simple presentation. This is my journey from doodles to cover art and how I started working with other artists to create album artworks and basically communicate through a visual language. So what is a doodle? Doodles are simple drawings that can have concrete representational meaning or maybe just composed of random and abstract lines or shape. Or simply put, stuff that you scribble on when you're going through a boring meeting or a classroom or maybe a session like this. So that's what Doodle is, and that's how I started my journey as an artist. Because I was a really bad engineering student, I sucked at it. It would have taken me almost 8 years to finish my degree, and I would have been a not fit for engineer, basically tagged by that. So I started doodling and sketching basically straight out of memory and observation, and my forms were all over the place. They were incorrect. There was no particular strict order, and I didn't let that actually hamper my process. Like even if it's wrong, or even if it's completely incorrect, I kept on experimenting and creating different forms which suited my comfort. And then slowly I started to realize that what's the most important thing that stuck to me. Even this 10 years of being in this field of art and design, I figured out that it's the medium which has always attracted me towards why I make art. Is the fact that I have a very love-hate relationship with paper and ink. So everything, like all the illustrations, all the doodles started with a simple ballpoint pen and a paper, right? So this is what I've realized. The core of your art or your essence or your visual language heavily relies on the medium that you're comfortable with and you're ready to keep on experimenting with. And that's how you stay consistent and creating and you start molding that medium into different forms and different techniques. So these are some of the stuff that I initially used to do, like hugely monotone stuff. And mind you, I'm really afraid of colors. Like I don't know color theory, I don't know like any of those things. That's why I always stuck to two-tone colors initially, just red and black and white, and negative spaces and positive spaces basically. So that's how I used to doodle, and these are some of the works that I used to sketch on notebooks, which are primarily black ink-based artwork on simple paper, and some of them are like just crotch hashing, lines, and just fills and lines. That's all. And I kept doing that for many years till I was comfortable with the medium of ink and paper. Now, so does comic book. Now, the most important thing I find fascinating was the inking style of comic books. Like, for example, when I started off, I used to collect a lot of image comics, like Youngblood, infamous Rob Liefeld, who was practicing with a lot of ugly forms. Then Todd McFarlane was one of my biggest inspirations. So Spawn had a lot of inking involved in them because the tone was very dark. There's a lot of shading work going on. So that really fascinated me, and I learned that in order for an illustration to have like depth, weight, and emotion, I think the role of inking is very important. And mind you, coloring was something that I found very difficult, and I had never experimented with it. So I always thought that inking was the main thing. For me, even now today, I feel like working on the dark tones, working on the tones and the grays and the inking process is the most important process for creating any sort of illustration. So I heavily relied on the inking style, which I started developing because this only relied on my favorite medium, which is ink and paper, and nothing else. And my arch nemesis, coloring, was nowhere near the scene. So I started studying more inking styles of various artists, and I learned the importance of inking at a very early stage. And every other illustration that I did, I made sure that the process of inking was on point. Like, and if you would ask me, I would suggest there is a very influential book. It's called The Art of Comic Book Inking by Gary Martin, I think. So that's a very influential and a very extensive book which teaches you how to ink. and specifically comic book inking. So I would suggest if you're really into making illustrations, like that book really works wonders. Like it works amazingly, and it's a very good teacher. So now this are a few examples of where inking can be seen, like the covers, and one of my favorite manga artists was Kentaro Miura, who passed away. So the inking style is something which, or his inking style is something very detailed and unique, I feel like, and that's a very good manga to study inking, to be really specific, because the kind of details that he plays around with and how he inks is very distinctive and it's very extensive in its true nature. So I think these are some of the inspirations that I had gone through initially to come to where I am today. And then now I took the simple, see, as a kid I was into collecting comic books, but I never knew the stories behind the covers. So what I would do, I would go to a store and whichever is the most fanciest or goriest looking cover, I would buy that. And I would keep collecting those. And slowly I figured that there is a different kind of language that is used in a cover art design. There's always a title, there's always a character, there's always an issue. So it's a form of very strong communication. Now, later on in my career, when I started getting more work for music artists or brands, so I went back to my initial days of understanding and studying comic book covers. And then what I started doing is, I started incorporating those elements of cover into album artworks, cover art, poster making, because the language is very simple and it's to the point. You have a title headline, which is a large font, a very iconic comic font, and then you have the other subtext like issue number, character, subtitles and stuff, which is quite ideal for any form of visual communication that you practice. So I used those and I started making covers and artworks which were inspired of comic book cover. For example, this is one cover that I did, but this is not actually a cover. It's an acrylic piece of painting which was displayed at a gallery, which is done in form of a comic book cover, a retro-futuristic comic book cover. Then this is the stuff that I did for Adidas, which is like, again, comic book panels made into different forms. Again, heavily relying on the style of inking. If you can see, it's mostly black and white, a lot of ink work. Then this is something a bit different from my usual stuff. This is an album cover I did for Nuclear and Major Lazer. So again, I've used a simple reference of a comic book cover. This was an issue of Batman versus Punisher, and where I just swapped up the character with Major Lazer and Raja Baja as the primary covers for them, and then I came up with this whole thing. Because this was a one-of-one track, I've used the track number as the issue number, then I've used the character of Major Lazer from the cartoon itself as the publishing thing. So it's just a simple shift of idea and language which works for all this. Again, this is inspired from Ghost Rider and Punisher. This is what I've done for MC Altaf and Ikka. Again, primarily relying on a singular style of just using 2 to 3 colors, which I always stuck to. Then again, same, comic book illustrations are very informative and interactive because of the kind of messaging. It's very clear, it's out there, and I think it works wonderful. Like, these are some of the inspirations I had, like Jim Lee, Neil Adams, Steve, and then of course, my ultimate inspiration is Frank Miller. Like, he just introduced a whole new style of anatomy, gore, blood, which was never there in storytelling through comic books. So I feel like this is something which I really relate to, and the kind of forms that he created with the iconic Frank Miller Batman was so much different from the usual Batman that we see around the past generations made. So I think, again, gore and blood is something, themes that I really love to play around with. Now these are some of the paintings and illustrations that are comic book inspired. Like, for example, this is an acrylic piece of work which is inspired of Frank Miller's Batman. So I'm slowly changing up the medium. Now, comic book illustrations were heavily relying on like digital coloring, or maybe before it was analog coloring, then inking on paper on smaller scales, right? So right now what I'm experimenting is I'm trying to blow it up. Like I want to create large life-size, like 10 by 10 feet canvases of paintings which are inspired of comic book illustrations. So this is one of those pieces I created, like the iconic Batman, Franklin the Batman, with just acrylic and ink. Then these are some of my other works, like there's one piece inspired painting which I had done right in the center, and these are two different tones of, again, see how you can see the difference in the in the black and white drawing or illustration. The use of black, you can see the depth, how much of the grey tones and the blacks that I've used. And the moment you incorporate color in those, it has a whole different depth to it. So again, similarly with the One Piece character over here, Luffy, and this whole Wano arc. Then again, manga themed paintings. These are large 5 by 5 feet canvases, just made with acrylic and ink. Again, using analog methods to create paintings and introducing basically comic book art in the world of fine art. Because, I mean, I know, you know how fine artists are, right? Like, they won't regard comic book illustrations or art as like art. So this is what I'm trying to do right now. I want to put all my inspirations, I want to put all the artworks that I've done, which are inspired of comic books and mangas, in fine art galleries, and create a whole new wave of art movement which represents people like us, and the inspirations that we have. Now again, these are some of the other stuff that I have created recently. Now the style has changed over the years. Now I'm experimenting more with colors. After 10 years of practicing with just ink and black and monotone stuff, I finally have the confidence of experimenting with colors. Now this is a whole new phase where I'm just trying out different color combinations, contrasts and everything. But again, I can't emphasize on the importance of this very thing, just the inking process. It's very crucial, I feel like, and this, if you have your inking game strong, you can go a long way. And that's pretty much what's there to the stuff that I've been doing recently and what my journey was like. And I just like to open up a Q&A session right now, because I really suck at presentations and stuff. So if you can ask me any questions, I'll be better at that, I promise you.
Since you have your own style of self-taught, is that right? Relatively, your line work they seem a bit loose comparatively, and so when it comes to official professional work, so how is there a challenge to like follow up with a particular style, or you just go with what you have already?
No, see, this is what I've known. Like, see, I have made this style sort of like a signature thing. Like when it comes to line or whatever. If you go through some of the other work, because I thought this is a more like a comic book thing, so I just pulled up some of the works which inspired all my comic book stuff. But if you look at my other work, if you go through it, you see there's a distinctive style. I have never had a very strict form, because I don't have that hand of like really strict line works or form-based stuff. It's mostly more on a fluidic line. So I have made that disadvantage into a style, an artistic style. Now, because of that signature style, I get called on for that work. So their references are always on point with the kind of style that I do. It's just that matter of time when you're actually creating an art form or you're practicing with a style, you have to be consistent. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but it needs to be out there so that people keep observing it, they're aware of this, and then that becomes in itself a different entity. And then people expect that style from me. They will stop, okay, I want this kind of style. They will stop comparing this with other artists, because you have made your own mark as a distinctive style artist. So that way, that's why I'm trying to incorporate like comic book inking and paint style into paintings and create a whole new style as a whole.
You don't see that quite often.
Yeah, you don't exactly. So that I mean, it's all about combinations of things. Like as an artist, you can only have bunch of references and a single medium. And how you combine those references and you use that medium to create an output is entirely up to you, right? So this is a combination that I'm trying out right now, is how to combine the world of fine art into with actually the illustrative style of comic booking.
But is there a particular style like very different from what you do already? Is some would you be interested, or are you looking after like doing something completely different from your general body?
Yeah,
And aspiring to like something.
yeah. I mean, completely different as in like in what sense?
Maybe you like some artist and you like their style.
Huh.
You might want to explore in that particular forum or that area. So is there something like that for you?
Yes, definitely there is. There are always like different artists that are very like I used to do that before when I started off because I had no idea about style or how to come across your own distinctive style. So I used to copy. So my copying was the only way through which I taught myself how to draw and sketch. And at that point, I had a bunch of inspirations. Like you had James Dean, then you have Todd McFarlane is one of my inspirations, and then you have Richie Beckett. These are all I mean, they are somewhere between illustrators and fine artists. So there are already people who are doing it. They're out there. But the thing is, they are not very popular as the other artists are. So I'm not saying I'm the first one who's doing it right now. There always has been few other artists who have experimented stuff on these
You don't
lines.
see much done here. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm trying to do it here and see how the people respond to it. Because I mean, if you think of any other art style or any other art form, almost everything has been done. It's always like, is my art unique? And you have this imposter syndrome that I'm not that great as other artists. You always, it's always there, no matter how good you are, how bad you are. So I think that way, it's always about combinations of things, as simple as that, and how differently you can combine those and express it through a medium that you're comfortable with.
Thank you.
Hi Santanu.
Hi.
So I'm actually a fan of your journey, and basically I wanted to ask, like after winning, the Red Bull Doodle competition years ago, how did you find? I mean, the brands contacted you, or maybe you still struggled after that, and got in contact with the brands, and how did you like show yourself? I know mostly you are a lot of active on Instagram, but then other ways, like did brand get connected to you because of the doodle competition, or like what is the method for that?
See, when I won the championship, it was in 2014, and I was still a student. And trust me, I didn't even know how to draft an email. And for me to reach out to big brands and all was like another question. There's no other way. And I lived in Assam, Guwahati, and it's like a whole different ball game there. So, but what I always did, like even though there was Instagram and social media, I mean it's very important, but nothing beats physical interaction. Like what we're doing today goes a long way. So whatever I did, like how to reach out to other people and how brands reach out to me was by doing physical work, like being physically present in a physical space. Like I took up projects which demanded of me to be there. Suppose painting cars, painting murals, like larger mediums helped me actually get in the limelight. So initially, digital art is very new to me. I'm mostly a traditional artist. So I always painted large murals. I painted cars, or everything that I can put my hand on. I would draw and sketch on. Like like painted flyovers, I painted walls, I painted cars, I painted large canvases in obscure festivals and music festivals. And for at least half of my career, I never got paid for it. So I always had to struggle for money, I always had to struggle for all this, but then you need to be patient. And this is what I've noticed. Again, physical art, being physically present in presence of your potential clients or be it your audience, is something which is very important in order for you to reach more organically.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Montesh Roy. I too am sort of like a self-taught artist, not yet an artist. But has there ever been a point for you where you feel like you have touched stagnation, or it just feels like you are in a slump, and no matter how hard you're trying, you just feel you're stuck there?
I mean, I'm going through it right now. I mean, right now I'm really stuck. To be honest, I'm trying to figure out new techniques or new ways to actually create different forms of artworks, and while being true to my own style. Now, this is what I've like noticed with work or with art is it's a personal thing, and it might be different for everyone. For me, discipline is something which is very important. Like even if I'm not inspired to work or create something or draw something, I would get up and at least do something, draw something, even if it's, and I don't care how bad it is or good it is, I'll make it a point that I'm creating one sketch or half a sketch in a day. And it might go on for weeks, it might go on for 2-3 days, but you just have to trust the process, and that's what has always worked for me. And sometimes I would change the medium. Like suppose I'm doing a lot of sketch work, a lot of ink work, and I'm stuck at one place and I'm not getting any new ideas or to create new ideas. I'll start practicing with a different medium. I'll probably take up a sheet of canvas and I'll start painting, even though I might not know anything about painting. But it's an exciting journey. So what happens, you're breaking a monotony and you're creating a sort of excitement in your workflow, which will fuel your other medium. The moment you challenge yourself with a new medium, your other medium also kind of replenishes or rejuvenates in a way. And that's what has worked for me.
And what would you say about, because back when I started first drawing as a whole, so previously when I started when I was a kid, we used to have those drawing classes that you go to, and then I sketched a beach for half an hour to 1 hour, and the beach had everything that a beach is not supposed to have, and it turned into something else apart from beach, and it was rubbed by the sir, and he made a beach in his own image. So later on down the line when I felt ki let's start drawing, I started, and inspirations like Yusuke Murata, and then you have Jim Lee, David Finch, but then once you start copying them, has there ever been a point like you start beating yourself up ki it's not like them, no matter how hard you are trying, you're just not able to touch his level or Jim Lee's level. So
I mean, see, as an artist, self-doubt it'll always be there. It's a boon and it's also a curse. I mean, and it's important because you need to be rooted at one point. You also, no matter how imaginative you are, you still need those sets of skills. And that's where the discipline comes in play. If you don't have those skills, you'll never be able to produce those artworks that you've been imagining or trying to create, right? Now, comparing is a very bad thing. Again, art is something which is very error-prone in its nature. Art is not supposed to exist, to be honest. That's what I feel. Because everything that you see around art, like how do you define art? There's no particular way. How do you define your expressions through art? So what happens is, comparing yourself to something which cannot be defined in a very concrete way, because each of these other artists that you're comparing yourself to have their own unique journey and their own process. You cannot be someone else. And also you have to think to yourself, like 10 years down the line, if I make it big and everyone knows about my artwork, will I be okay if someone calls me a copycat of maybe all the artists that you have mentioned? Right? So don't beat yourself up thinking that, okay, I'm not as good as this artist, that artist. These are inspirations. This will only help you guide, achieve your own style in a way. Use them for practice. Don't consider them as your personal style because it's not yours. And I mean, that's all there is to it. There's no point comparing. You can't beat yourself up on that.
thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much. I have a random question. Where does graffiti fit in all of this in this universe of artists and comics.
I mean, now
Culturally, do we have enough graffiti? Does all, I see so many artists here. I don't see enough graffiti because that often is an expression of people talking about issues or presenting them or bringing them out in spaces where people aren't going to publish these ideas yet. So where do you? And this is a question to Anand also, and to everybody. Where does graffiti fit in the culture at this point?
I mean, fit as in like, do you what's the graffiti scene right now?
Yes. And what does it reflect today in India?
See, graffiti is the term graffiti and the whole concept of graffiti is pure defiance. It's a sort of associated with vandalism, and this started off way early, like in US, where artists were just spot jockeying or just creating initials around the neighborhood, right, as form of something, as an achievement or maybe as some form of defiance. Now that thing has blown up and become an art style in itself, and it's a phenomenon right now because of street artists. Now graffiti falls in the realm of public art in a way because it's mostly done in public spaces, and it's more of like an expression. Like if you have something to say about a locality, it's a very localized phenomenon. I feel like graffiti is a very localized phenomenon because it is representative of the community mostly, and it belongs to in the realm of public art and street art. And definitely right now in India we have many graffiti artists who are really doing amazing work, like say Muzwan, Enemy. They are actually representing the Indian graffiti scene, like outside of India. They've brought many laurels to their names also, and I think it's growing at a very fast pace. But and I'm really glad that it has been now it's been celebrated as an art form, not as a crime or something to do with vandalism. And maybe we'll have to wait for a new form of vandalism to emerge and a new art form in itself.
But as artists, Anand, and this is what, do you feel the urge to put your art out in public spaces? I mean, maybe it's an idea or something that you want to express about the country or the community or social order or whatever is happening around you. Do you feel that urge?
Yeah. Like some of my favorite artists are street artists, like Artists and Signer and all of these guys. India, my way seen it, I can only tell you personally what I feel about it. I would love to do like a massive wall or something like that. It's just that things haven't fallen in place for me logistically, or someone hasn't kind of funded the project yet. I've written the Street Art Start Foundation, but it hasn't worked out yet. But if it happens, it happens. Like, I mean, there are definitely avenues for large murals and like larger than life images for sure in the public scene. So even I mentioned Street Art Start Foundation, but even floating canvas, there are so many different companies that are doing a lot of public work. So there definitely is there.
I mean, we can still take the vandalism route.
Yeah. That's the alternate culture, right? That's
Yeah. I mean, it has become like more of, right now it's like a mainstream thing. Like even though graffiti started off as an alternate culture, but right now, like even brands are actually hiring graffiti artists to promote their products.
Right.
Like for example, for the movie, like in Bombay, if you drive on the ceiling, there's giant murals and street art graffitis of different movies which keeps on changing.
Yeah.
So the brands have also understood the importance of public art and the space. So now they are hiring different graffiti artists to actually work, or influencers to actually create art influencers to create artwork around their brands and stuff.
Budweiser thing also reached my body.
Oh yeah, correct. The Budweiser thing also, which was, I mean, it's a long debate. Like this is what the brands are doing. They're trying to sort of capitalize on something which belongs to the street and always has been a form of revolution,
yes,
or something to do against the system basically. Graffiti always had spoken against the system. Now a brand like Budweiser, the recent thing what happened, they covered all of those graffiti work with their football promotions and stuff, which had a huge retaliation.
Obviously.
And people didn't take to it because you're completely going against the community. You're just appropriating something which belongs to us as street artists or graffiti artists. So that doesn't work that way. Now they found a different way. Now they go ahead, take permissions from venues, pay them, and then pay the artists, and then get their product in. I mean, that completely beats the whole purpose. That's why I said we need a new form of vandalism to voice out our grievances.
Yeah, you're supposed to undermine the system, right? You're
Yeah,
supposed
correct.
It's a sort of a rebellion against
Status quo.
the status quo. But thank you so much, Shantanu. Thank you so much. I know you are not well, but nonetheless, you made the effort, and I think
Thank you.
all these guys have, they've benefited from this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. There you go, host.